This is Interpreting Wine host and founder Lawrence Francis, welcoming you to this, my Willamette Valley Winemaker Special. Across these 20 episodes recorded in quick-fire fashion in January 2020, I got to meet a broad selection of people making wine in the region, both a variety of winemaking scale from the micro to the macro, and also different focuses that include different aging vessels, different grape varieties, sparkling wines, and of course different interpretations of Pinot. Episodes are going to be released in the order that they were recorded, so you'll get to be a virtual guest on the tour. 2 things you can do to help spread this series even further. One is to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, either where you're listening or on your favorite podcast platform. And the second, the one that's really going to help push this out there, is to head to interpretingwine.com/iTunes and leave a review letting me know what you think. A genuine, huge thank you in advance. Today's episode of the Willamette Valley Winemaker Special features Chris Williams of Brooks Wine. We hear his origin story and transition into making wine at Brooks. We do a deep dive into the custom crush, philosophy and culture. He takes us on a Brooks Winery virtual tour. We stay in the soil for a discussion of Phylloxera in the Willamette Valley. Before tasting 3 wines, the 2017 Ara Riesling, the 2016 Eola-Amity Hills Pinot Noir, and the 2017 Dry Muscat, before he looks ahead and shares some of the charity work on the Brooks horizon in 2020. Enjoy.
Most people find a passion for wine and become interested in making wine. I just met somebody that had a passion for wine and kind of fell into the industry. So I started helping Jimmy Brooks out back in 1999. Late 99 is when I met him originally. Knew nothing about wine, but came out and started kind of helping when he was at Willamette. So I kind of fell into something that I began to appreciate how much I enjoyed making wine. And then as I went through the years and developed my palate, I found my appreciation for wine. I was very fortunate meeting Jimmy and tutoring under him, so really learning the ins and outs of winemaking and why you make decisions. He was a very good teacher. So those first few years, I didn't have that mentality that I wanted to go out and be a head winemaker. I was more absorbing all these things that I knew nothing about. So, like I said, I was fortunate to have a good teacher in him, and I feel in those first few years I learned quite a bit. So when he passed away in 2004, and I kind of got thrown into making a bunch of different people's wines, I really had something to rely on, that information that I had learned that helped me get through all that. So after 2004, after Jimmy passed away and everybody kind of got together that year to make the wines, I learned a little bit more about other people's styles as other people made bits and pieces of the Brooks wines, and then bringing everything back and really looking at everything and seeing small differences in how other people had done things. It made me interested in finding out more about doing more interesting things. We went into Custom Crush for a few years, got our growth up to about 7,000 cases. And actually that was an important thing, kind of learning more under Laurent Montague and working over at 12th and Maple with Aaron Hess. Brought a lot of interesting aspects of a more natural style winemaking into light for me, especially with Aaron. Aaron did a lot of native fermentations, so that gave me an opportunity to see somebody else doing that over a couple of years and then start to move that into what would ultimately be something that we would want to do at Brooks anyway, just in order to kind of bring that biodynamics into the winery itself.
it's obviously been a really intense week here, and I think by now we'll be sort of 16 or so interviews online in this series. So we're very much sort of deep into our exploration of the Willamette Valley, and maybe something that I should have asked earlier, and I think it will just sort of put it out there as you kind of brought it up there. When you say you went into custom crush, what exactly does that mean? And I guess it sounds as though it was a sort of a meaningful part of the journey here. So just through your eyes, what does that sort of mean?
The custom crush facilities are a great way for people to kind of, you think of them as a kind of a co-op, where people can kind of get together, share equipment, have that opportunity to be able to make wine on a smaller level without having to make the giant investments that you have to make in a normal winery. So the community aspect is very large in a custom crush because you have so many different people working there. You have different styles where some styles, the facility itself just charges you per case to make your wine. Other ones are actually much more community oriented, where everybody kind of gets together and helps each other make the wines throughout the harvest. So it's a really good opportunity for a smaller producer to be able to make some fantastic wines and utilize the best equipment they can.
And I guess, just to maybe, ram the point home for, city boy over here. I mean, is it kind of like, the kind of, I guess, the startup equivalent of like a co-working space, and the idea that, in some co-working spaces, you do have like separate offices and there are, different sort of levels and different sort of support that's there. Would that be a kind of a fair comparison to make?
Yeah, definitely. I think that would be a good comparison. Like I said, there's a lot of different styles of them. So you do have the larger styles where they are more just making your wines for you. But I think that the growth and the actual smaller community style harvests is the exciting part.
Fascinating story, and it's just amazing to kind of have you bring us up to date in that respect, and I think what would then be the next step, and something that's been working really well right the way across the series, is just to ask you to talk to the land really, and knowing that you source fruit from a variety of different areas, that you grow estate fruit as well. I think your own personal view of the land and where those grapes are coming from, I think will be just really, really interesting for us to hear.
Okay, well, definitely fortunate to be in the Willamette Valley. I mean, we do have a lot of different soil types, a lot of different kind of microclimates within the valley itself. Purchasing fruit from so many different areas of the valley, I really get to work with all different soil types, from sedimentaries to volcanics. I get to work in all different areas of the valley. With the Riesling in particular, we have 15 different Riesling vineyards we work with. So we have the ability to do a lot of single vineyard things in the winery that are exciting to show that particular place and do it right next to a wine that came from somewhere completely different in the valley, and see how much different they can be. The land here is just, it's a fantastic climate. We have diversity throughout the growing seasons. We have a real change from vintage to vintage, which is really exciting to see. We have nice soils. We have fantastic soils here. And just, it's a really good industry. And I think that what makes it the best part about the industry is the community aspect of the industry and how well we all work together, even though we all are in places that are slightly different. Volcanic soils, so we have predominantly a combination of Jory and Nikaya soils. So fairly deep soils. We have a lot of rocky terrain here, which inhibits a little bit of growth and just makes things work a little harder to get around. It's just, the opportunity to me, more than the particular soil type individually, is just to have the variety of different soil types that we have and how much different each of them can be. We have, with our estate fruit, the soil really lends a complexity and a depth to the wines, I feel. I think the big difference when we talk about soils, though, is obviously the conversation of clonal selection and rootstock. And for me, the rootstock is the biggest part of it because I work with a lot of different vineyards. Our estate in particular, our Crandall vineyard directly below us, that 20 acres that are own rooted. And I really feel that the ability for that plant to show the soil through its own roots makes the biggest difference for me in the conversation. The texture and quality of the wines just seems to be different than it is on the equivalent thing planted on rootstock. So it's exciting to have those bits and pieces of it. Rootstock is obviously a necessity in the valley. We do have Phylloxera in the valley, and I do have a numerous amount of vineyards that have Phylloxera. So as the tide changes and we have to go to more rootstock throughout the valley in those sites, I think it'll change the wine.
Just to kind of play back, I mean, I think it has come up a few times, actually, that whole question of own rootstock and the people watching the behavior of the plant and seeing the difference that makes. And, you're talking to how it turns up in the glass as well, it's been really interesting hearing about those differences, and I think it's something that I, for one, will be a lot more aware of, I think, and sensitive to, because I'd rightly or wrongly, I'd kind of assumed that everything had to be on the Phylloxera resistant rootstock, and that having its own rootstock, unless you were in, I don't know, say, I think some of the like the Canary Islands and places that are so remote and so high, and the soil is so sandy that the Phylloxera can't really get a hold. And I think it's an interesting discussion, and certainly one that I'm hearing a lot more on here rather than in really any of the places that I visited. As well as the kind of the rootstock discussion, I think just being with somebody who's I guess is still in an area where there are own rootstocked plants that don't yet have Phylloxera. Again, I think that ship kind of sailed a long time ago in lots of parts of the old world. So just maybe just give us a little bit of an insight into what does it kind of look like as the when do you notice it, and what is kind of in your mind when you realize, okay, there's plants there that you've got them on their own rootstock. Maybe you just have to keep an eye out for the Phylloxera. Just curious to understand what you're thinking really when you're out there walking in the vines.
Phylloxera is definitely a real problem. We have a fair amount of plantings. Pretty much anything that was planted pre-1984 seems to have been planted on its own rootstock, and we actually have vines right below us that have been planted in the last couple of years, Muscat and Gamay, on its own rootstock in our Crandall area, our Crandall vineyard. But we have Phylloxera. I have Phylloxera in my Old Vine Riesling vineyard, 84 plantings out in Yamhill. I have Phylloxera in my Temperance Hill vineyard, which is mid-80s plantings, and also some 90s plantings up in the Eola-Amity Hills area, not far from us. So it's really hard because to me it really does make such a difference in the wine, and I just really do appreciate the wine so much more that it's a risk that you just have to keep an eye on. So I mean, you're constantly looking for areas that might look like they have a lens, or that might be starting to show a little bit of yellowing, or and we've had it in the you can manage it a little bit for the first few years, I think. It just kind of seems to float around, but then eventually it kind of takes a bigger hold. And so, like in Temperance, we've started replacing some of the plants as rows die out, and just try to make that transfer. But, those wines will never be exactly the way they were when it was the way it's been for so long. Not really that we know of any treatments. I worked with somebody for a few years that had it in the vineyard that was trying some biodynamic stuff, combination of eggshell, bentonite, a couple other things as a paste on the trunk. And it seemed like they could kind of help not spread as fast or have it take over as fast, but in the end, the vineyard was replanted. So, I mean, it's a risk-reward thing. It's a lot of this stuff is in there, so you're going to take advantage of it for as long as you can. It's hard to just rip out an entire vineyard when it still has areas of it that are producing good. So it is what it is.
Super interesting and incredible, as I say, to have this discussion and still be kind of having that conversation in 2020. Say albeit over here in Oregon, it's great to share and great learning. Now we've got 3 bottles on the table here, and I in sort of typical style, I just invite you to kind of I guess continue the story now into the point where most people out there, I guess, kind of have a chance to really experience these, and how does what you're doing here through all of the different purchasing programs and estate grown fruit, how does that then show up in the bottle?
So, 2017 Ara. Ara is a really, like I said earlier, in the Riesling lineup, it's one that's very important to me. Jimmy started the Ara back in 2003, kind of as our second. It was the second Riesling we started making, and it was meant to be something a little extra special. So the following year, when Jimmy passed away, a large portion of what I made was the Rieslings. And these were 2 different vineyards that were, I feel, very close to Brooks. Our Yamhill vineyard, Ralph Stein's vineyard, planted in 1984. It was actually the first vineyard that Jimmy started getting Riesling from and making the Willamette Valley with. And then our estate vineyard, or what is now our estate vineyard. So Jimmy had just started leasing 4 acres of the Eola Springs vineyard next to us. And we started working with biodynamics in 2002 in that Riesling section. So self-rooted 1975 plantings, just a really special place. So that year I decided I wanted to make the Ara, that combination of those 2 most important vineyards to me, and what I felt Jimmy would have thought. So it became that, and then it's been a baseline for that ever since, trying to kind of have this be one of the wines that I try to make as consistent every year so that really the vintage stands out on the wine as much as anything. To me, this is going to be one of those wines when we talked about texture. It's both the estate and Yamhill are self-rooted. Yamhill's actually got Phylloxera now, so I've been getting less and less of it every year. But 2 completely different vineyard sites. The planting scion wood from the 2 sites is actually the same scion wood. So in 1975, Don got cuttings from the Erath plantings of the late 60s Riesling and brought them up here and basically put them in the ground. So started the vineyard here with the Riesling in 75. In 1984, Ralph got cuttings from that same section of the vineyard at Erath, took them back to Yamhill, put them in the ground, and started his Riesling vineyard in there. So same exact wood, but 2 completely different places and 2 completely different soil types. One more sedimentary style and the other volcanic. When we make these wines, they're completely different. So when I press the juice off, the Yamhill juice is bright orange. It has a real apricot character. It's got a mandarin orange character to it. When I press the estate fruit off, it's a very kind of lime green yellow color. It's much more green apple, melon, and a lemon lime citrus. So even though the same exact wood, granted 9 years apart, but both showing to me characteristics of old vine anyway. Just 2 completely different wines. I mean, it couldn't be more different. And so that combination of those 2 develops a character in the wine to me that's more tropical, and that is a kind of a character I don't see in either one of them separately. So
It's a real sort of lip smacker, isn't it? It's just, it's just incredible. Yeah, I think a lot of the components that you spoke to there showing up in the glass, and I just think it's again back to, as you say, those two very different types of fruit and different characteristics, but coming together, it's kind of so harmoniously. And it's just what I'm getting there. It's the texture, the depth, and I just think personality. Actually, I think that's the word I would use to describe this, because it's I guess sometimes you go into certain rooms and you have the people who you might miss, but I think this is very much it's very much a sort of a forward Riesling. It's a confident Riesling, and maybe there's elements of that speaking to the origins and speaking to the way it's been grown, and the way that it's sort of it's at home, I guess, in this valley, the plants, and it's them producing a wine that's it feels quite sure of itself, and really, again, at the end of the day, it's a wine to be drunk as well, and it's balanced, and it's pleasurable to drink. So really, really amazing. And I think I'm lovely. I'm really happy that you've chosen a Riesling.
So last wine was 2017 vintage. We're going to bump back a little bit to 2016 for our Pinot. This is our old vine Pommard. Like I said, it's that 1973-74 planted 5 acres of the estate, own rooted, been biodynamic since 2004. So to me, this is, I think, my favorite Pinot in the lineup that I do consistently every year. We really always enjoyed this wine. It took us a few years to finally start doing it on its own. I'm not sure why, but once we did and were able to start kind of showing people just this individual block, it was exciting. So for production for Pinot, basically we really do, I know it's cliche to say, but to try to pick when the optimal time to pick is. Now, I'm not talking down to the hour, but really you want to find that time where we bring things in so that we don't have to do adjustments. So sometimes you have to make a compromise in one number for the other, but that shows part of vintage. So for bringing everything in, we destem pretty much everything. Really ripe years, maybe we'll do a couple of lots where we'll do some whole cluster. We did some experimentation this year with a couple of lots. So, but this would have most everything destemmed. Basically put it into a tank, anywhere from 3 to 5 day kind of cold soak on it, and then letting that kind of native fermentation develop. So we'll do punch downs twice a day through the entire fermentation. I like to wait for the cap to drop so that I know I kind of have full fermentation finished. Press things off, settle them out, and then into barrel. So this one will sit in barrel for about 18 months. Really let it develop. So exciting this year. We made an investment and bought a new basket press. So we bought a nice 5-ton hydraulic basket press for the reds. So now we have a separate whites press and reds press. And the basket press was really great this year. I think it's going to help a lot of these wines even be better. I just think the lack, with a membrane press, you're putting everything in there. It's dropping in from a fairly high rate, so it's breaking things. You're more likely to get maybe broken seeds. It's going to press. It's going to rotate and press a lot more, so you're going to get a lot more breakage of tannin and everything. And we like a softer, finer grain tannin, some more of that skin tannin. And I think that the basket press, putting it in there, it doesn't ever turn. It just goes in as one 3 to 4 ton lot usually, with a full press on it. And it just, I just think the press wine coming out is softer. So that's exciting to see. I like press wine. Press wine has character. Like we talk about personality, character. That's a lot of what press wine is. A lot of times people talk about the free run and how good the free run is, but really it's the press run that has more intensity usually to it and has more character to it. So if you can have a press that gives you better press run, then that's a win-win.
Say first off, I'm really enjoying your descriptions here. I think it's just it's great to have your insight and your communication captured here and kind of going out there. And I'm kind of I'm gonna, in a way, I guess, kind of repeat myself. I'm sure. Again, this is all of these Pinots that I'm having are all completely different. They're really, super do have that sense of place, I think, and sense of the approach of the winemaker and the situation and the terroir and where these wines are finding themselves. And this is definitely for me, on the sort of the more sort of brighter side, I would say. There's still definitely presence here, but some of the Pinots I've had have been quite a lot bigger, and that kind of that much to the darker fruit characteristics. But this to me is very very much on that, I say, that lighter style, still with bags of character and I think bringing through lots of depth and just gorgeous.
I think it shows as an older vine. So very early planting, 73 planted vine. I feel once the vine gets to that 25 or so year, 25 to 30 year mark, you start to find much less big fruit character, and have much more secondary characteristics in the wine. And so I think that's what this kind of block shows every year, that it doesn't have to be a fruit bomb to have real depth to it. And this wine has amazing amount of depth without being in your face. Third and final wine. All right, now we'll go back to 2017. I'm showing you a Muscat today. So Muscat, I think we first started making Muscat as an addition to Amicus in about 2006, I believe, 2007. Just as a kind of we do a Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, Riesling, Gewurz blend, and I wanted to see what Muscat would be like in it. So we got some Muscat, made the wine, dried it out completely, and I just fell in love with it. I mean, it was a great addition. I really enjoyed the addition of it to the Amicus. Did it in that for a couple of years, and then finally asked Janie if I could do a single bottling of it. So these particular plants are older vine, so it's a combination of early Muscat planted in the mid-'80s and newer orange Muscat planted just kitty corner to our estate on the hill here. So I talked one of my growers into planting me a little bit of orange Muscat, which is generally found in the southern end of the state. It is a little more difficult to grow up here. I think we're working on managing it the best way we can, and I think it's been making fantastic wines. So I'm really enjoying the way that orange has been turning out each year. So I do a combination on this wine of the two. In 2018, I actually did a single vineyard of the Eola Springs early. I did a single vineyard of the Muscat orange, and then I did the same Willamette combination of them. This year I'm excited because in the month or so I'm going to be putting into bottle. Right now we do a Riesling, sparkling Riesling. We've been doing since 2015, Method Champenois style. We do about 32-month tirage on it. So it's really exciting wine, and Janie's going to let me do a Muscat this year. So a dry Muscat done in that same style, nice long tirage on it, and just super excited to see how that turns out. So
that's another first. It's great to be sort of so many days and so many interviews deep into my exploration of the Willamette Valley, and then have something totally kind of change the game. It's just it's not what people expect, is it, from this region at all, and it has a capacity to surprise. But at the end of the day, you want a good surprise. A surprise for a surprise sake is not, I think, where you or anybody here is at, and that's just gorgeous. I mean, you got just those the sort of lifted aromatics, just sort of draw you in. It's just so inviting, and I'm very much an acid freak. I like the lightness. I like the vibrancy, and you really, I think with the wine like this, you're getting a complete package. You're getting all of the elements sort of coming together, and just that, for me, just that gorgeous, lovely, dry finish, and it's still very, very persistent, and I think it would just be one of those wines that I think, a lot of sommeliers would be excited to get in their hands and to, get together and do some interesting food pairings with this. And I think what you've really shown us across these three is that, there's so much versatility and diversity in this region, which I think, I've already discovered as being diverse, but it's just great to find, another layer to that. All that's really left for me to say is a huge thank you yet again. It's again an incredible experience here, and and just another incredible experience on the back of so many others. And we've sort of identified a couple of areas that you might look ahead to, and things that are sort of front of mind. So without further ado, take it away. Let us know kind of what you're looking forward to and what kind of what's on the horizon.
Okay. So a couple of cool events. One is our re-entry kind of into the UK market. So Janie's going to be coming out and doing a few things and kind of getting the opportunity for us to get wine back in. I'm super excited about that. I'm hoping to make a trip eventually too. But we'll see. We're doing an event called Party Like It. So the whole year we're going to have different events each month. Party Like It's a particular year. First one's Party Like It's 2012. We'll release a bunch of 2012 wines and kind of have some people talking about kind of what's going on and what we were doing back then. And I don't know, it's just going to be exciting events here at the winery. But a couple of things, probably the most exciting about things that are kind of moving forward that have happened fairly recently for us is one of which is 1% for the Planet. So we joined 1% for the Planet last year, which says basically that we commit to giving 1% of our total revenue to an environmental charity. Mm-hmm. And the first one we've chosen is a charity called Kiss the Dirt. And it's basically they're trying to teach people how important it is to the soil. And soil and what we grow our food in is actually as important as the food itself. So it's a really neat charity that we've chosen this year. Janie's really excited about it, but I think that's a good commitment that we've made to kind of continue on in the line of what Jimmy's philosophies were. The other one is a B Corp certification. So we became a B Corp certified winery, which basically it's a beneficial corporation, which kind of shows that what you're doing as a business is beneficial to your community. And it's another pretty exciting certification that we've taken on, and it aligned with our values very well. So to me, those are the two most important things that we've kind of done this year, and looking forward to doing that is basically looking forward to giving more money to people that really need a hand in getting a message out. So.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was an absolute pleasure meeting you. As I mentioned on the day, I really loved your descriptions. And yet again, another very eloquent Willamette Valley winemaker. Do see below for the Brooks website where you can find details of all of the wines that we tried. And if you do happen to be in the area, I can highly recommend paying a visit to them and their lovely tasting room, which overlooks the vineyards. As Chris mentioned, Brooks wines are imported into the UK, and they are with Ester wines, so do follow up with them if you happen to be in the UK and like to try these wines. This being the 17th of 20 episodes of this Willamette Valley Winemaker Special, now is the time to jump into the playlist that I've created for the series. Just head to interpretingwine.com/WVWA to see all of the episodes so far. Next time on the podcast, Chris hands the storytelling baton to Joe Swick in episode 397. And if you're not already, then do please subscribe to be alerted when the remaining episodes go live. Just head to interpretingwine.com/listen. And if you're not already, I would love to have you following along with me on social media, where I'm at Interpreting Wine on Instagram and Facebook, at Wine Podcast on Twitter, and email hello@interpretingwine.com. See you next time.